I made this cosplay. And here's how I did it.
So I've got here my fabric. I've got 2 meters of white, then that's for the cape, and then 2 meters of black, and that's for the outfit itself. I got it from the website Discount Fabrics because that's where it was cheapest. The white fabric is just cheap poly cotton, so it is kind of see-through and quite thin. This black fabric is poly cotton drill, so it's thicker and sturdier. And I also use it for my Shoko cosplay. I've got a school shirt here, which is what I'm using to map out the pattern. And here's me just tracing around the shirt onto the fabric. And this is what it looks like, yay! This might seem kind of weird, but what I'm doing basically is I'm pinning the 2 sides of the fabric together where I folded it over, and this is before I cut the pattern out, which basically means that when I am cutting the pattern out, so I cut both sides at once, so I don't have to cut twice, and I don't have to redraw it, but the fabric underneath won't like maybe slip out of place and cause me to like accidentally cut it wrong, because that's happened to me before. Now once it's cut and I flip it over, you can kind of see part of the pins on the back kind of making the outline of where my drawing was before, and then I'm just using a piece of chalk to kind of do a little dot to dot between these little pin marks so that I now have the pattern on the other side of the fabric. Ta-da! And now I'm doing the same thing for the back of the shirt to get the back of the top pattern. Now I've pinned together the shoulders of the 2 front patterns and the back pattern. I think this is bad sized together, so then I can do French seams on the shoulders there. This is my sewing machine. It's a Brother JK2700NT. My mum bought it years ago. I'm just using it because it's what we have, but I do think it's pretty good and useful, so I guess I would recommend. This is me sewing in real time, but for the rest of the video I'm probably just going to speed it up loads. Now for the French seam, what I've done is I've sewn the 2 bad sides wrapped together, and now I'm cutting off the excess seam allowance, and then I'm flipping it so now the bad sides are out, and then I'd sew on it again. Here I'm drawing out the arm pattern. I'm kind of doing it from just thin air, to be honest, but what I'm doing is I'm drawing like a curve at the bottom, and I think it's like a bell curve where it goes up, and I'm cutting it. Then I'm pinning the top curved edge of that sleeve pattern to the armhole. This is what we have, though full transparency, I tried it on with the pins like that and it didn't fit quite right, so I ended up repinning it another 2 or 3 times. Now what I'm doing here is I'm sewing the ends of the sleeve together and the sides together at the same time in one long stitch. And then this is me pinning the other side of the sleeve together. Here I'm pinning on the collar. And then here I'm measuring out and cutting up the skirt. It's a pleated skirt, so usually I'd go for 3 times my waist measurement as the length, but then cutting that in half so that I can add a pocket shape to each side and sew those together. Though I was a little bit low on fabric, so I had to do it just 2 times my waist length, so the pleats aren't properly pleated. Here I've got a kind of round oval type shape which fits my hand in it or my phone in it, and I'm sewing that to the edge of my skirt strip on each strip so that I have a pocket. And then I'm sewing the 2 strips together around the pocket. Here I've pleated the fabric and just pinned that into place. Usually at this point I'd sew a stitch just down across it so that the pleats stay in place, but the con crunch was getting to me, so I just put the waistband straight on. The way I'm sewing the waistband on is called stitch in the ditch method, where first of all I sew it onto the top of the skirt wrong sides together, with the bottom edge of the waistband being at the top of the skirt. And then once that's sewn down, what I do is I flip it upwards, I iron it flat, and then I fold that waistband sticking up in half, but not exactly in half, so that the back side is longer, and then I'd sew along the front of the skirt in the little ditch between the waistband and the skirt itself. Here I'm sewing on the invisible zipper. I learned how to do this through TikTok. The con crunch was kind of getting to me, so I didn't film this, but what I've done is I hand sewed on the buttons and then I sewed in the buttonholes using my sewing machine. Here I'm just hemming the sleeves. And this is bias tape that I made myself, also following a TikTok tutorial, and it was made with the white fabric I bought for the cape. This tape is double fold, so the two ends are meeting in the middle, and then I fold it in half again. I did a mitered corner with the bias tape there on the edge of the collar, which is what I'm outlining in bias tape. Here I'm now cutting out the cape out of the white fabric, and what I'm doing is I'm cutting out a half circle skirt pattern. I'm hemming the edges of that now, and what I did is before I sewed the hem down, I ironed it as I was pinning it, which I think helped it stay flat and stay in place, which made it easier to sew. And the hem I'm doing is a rolled hem, and I've got mitered corners in the corner again. This footage is really bad, but what I'm doing is I'm adding poppers, and the way I'm doing it is I'm just pressing it on with this little contraption thing that I got off AliExpress. And here I'm braiding cord. I got the cord itself off AliExpress. I'm using a Kumihimo disc, I think it's called. I just found it under my bed. And that's the movements I'm doing. This cord was then hot glued onto the popper on the cape. I cut a butterfly shape out of foam, which is what I'm using for the little hair clip thing. I drew the pattern on with a pen, and then I painted it with whatever paint I had lying around. And I'd say the cosplay is now done. Here's the top, the skirt, and the cape with the cord glued on. And this is the fit check from when I wore it to con, which was Hyper Japan.
And here's the finished cosplay. So I've got here the hair clip. The wig is not looking the best because, you know, I was con crunching, but it does the job. I've got the cape that so you can literally see the buttons through it. And then there's the cord I braid on that. Then there's the bias tape around the edges of the collar here. Got here my buttons. I've got a belt. And then here I've got the pleated skirt. Yay! Thank you for watching. You should totally like and subscribe, turn on notifications, become my biggest fan, be an OG. If anyone has any video ideas they'd like to see, tell me, because my next cosplay that I'm making is gonna take me ages. So, like, there's no video for that coming soon. Bye bye!